Hello, everyone. We are doing something fun today. Oh, wait a minute. I forgot to introduce myself. I am Dr. Elizabeth from Psychology for Geeks, and today we're actually creating a tier list of the different therapy
Modalities.
modalities out there. Thank you. So I took out my little squishy ball from here, and we're going to go over 10. There's a lot more than that, but these are essentially like the top 10 that are used the most often. So I have them all in little papers, and I'm just going to grab one. We're going to discuss sort of like what it is, our experience with it, how much we like it, and then we're going to score it on the tier list. Now, I guess the disclaimer that I wanted to have for this is our opinion of it. It doesn't necessarily reflect whether or not one is better than the other. And I think the point of this, or the whole point of us making these videos, is for people to understand that there's a wide variety of interventions out there. And if you don't really necessarily like one, you can seek another one. And yeah. Anyway, so today I am not alone because I totally stole this idea from Mark. Because I saw he posted like
Modalities ranked.
yeah, and then I was like, oh, this is cool. But then you were like, yeah, we can talk about research, and I was like, I was like, do we have to? But yes, we have to. So we are basically ranking them on three things, right? Like how generalizable it is, how our own experience with it, and what the research says. Right. And then we're going to combine all that and rank them. So in case those people don't know what the ranking system is S is like the best of the best, right? A is pretty good, really good. B is solid. C is meh. And D is even worse than meh.
There's no F.
There's no F. Well, we're only doing 10, so I was like, we don't need to add another.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine as it is.
All right, wait. I just totally started rambling. Mark, would you like to introduce yourself before I get sidetracked?
Sure. My name is Mark Davis. I'm a licensed mental health counselor in Long Island, New York. I specialize in treating depression, anxiety, and suicidal ideation. I'm one of the few clinicians in New York State who specializes in treating suicide. I specialize mostly in treating that with teenagers to young professionals, like around 15 to 35, although I have treated people for suicide along the entire age gap. And yeah, my private practice is known as alchemy counseling. And yeah, that's the big and small of me in terms of mental health and therapy.
Yeah, we'll talk about your book at the end of this video.
Mm-hmm.
All right, cool. I am ready. Wait, let me get my notes. All right, cool.
Okay, so what's the first one?
One of them popped out, so I guess that's the first one.
That's fate. What do we got?
I forgot the whole name of it, but it's REBT.
REBT, Rational Emotive Behavior Therapy. Okay.
Yes.
So that was developed by Albert Ellis, I believe in the 50s. It was originally called Rational Therapy, but then over the years, over the decades, he changed the name. He made it become rather Rational Emotive Therapy, and then Rational Emotive Behavior Therapy, because he was getting criticism as the years went on. It's not focusing on the emotions parts, not focusing on behaviors, only focusing on logical beliefs and stuff like that. So he took these criticisms in stride, and he modified and tweaked the theory to eventually become REBT, and it is actually the primer, the very first CBT before CBT became CBT. It was made before Aaron Beck made his thing. So it is the primer CBT, and it has the amount of research that has been done on this is insane. There's a lot of really good research, meta-analyses out there in regards to it. It's actually the therapy that I specialize in most, along with solution-focused. What about yourself?
To be honest, I've never really heard about this one until you pointed it out.
Yeah, I remember going over to my theories class in grad school.
So, I mean, I remember not much from grad school, actually.
It was 5 years, a
just
long
just
time. You're in
just
grad school.
just like just blocked everything as soon as I graduated. It's like I don't remember this.
Probably the only thing you remember is working on that damn dissertation.
Yes. Uh, but okay, so the way that, because on the brief, I didn't do like an in-depth research like you did on it, but from the little bit that I did look into it, it seems like, yeah, it works. It's very effective, because it's very, the way that I understood in my brain, it's kind of like CBT but more in depth. Like you said, taking more into account um, emotions and behavior as well. Well, yeah, CBT takes behavior into account as well. But so it's a more complete form, I would say, than CBT. So
I would say so. Yeah. It focuses a lot more on irrational beliefs, rational, irrational, and what those mean. It doesn't necessarily mean logical. It could, but not necessarily. More so what irrational and rational beliefs mean is that is it self-destructive or is it self-helpful? That's how you would know. And whereas the main difference between CBT and REBT is that CBT has all these cognitive distortions. And those are useful in REBT, but it's not really what they usually rely on. Not cognitive distortions, irrational beliefs. And irrational beliefs are really fall down into three categories. There's irrational beliefs you have about yourself, irrational beliefs you have about other people, and irrational beliefs you have about the world or life at large. So just to give an example of each. So like an irrational belief about yourself is like, okay, I have to be perfect at all times. I always have to be going at a certain level. And rational belief of others is everyone has to treat me the way that I want to be treated at all times. And if they don't, then they're awful people. Or if they don't, that means that I'm a piece of shit. And then irrational beliefs about the world or life at large is that, okay, the world has to be easy or life has to be fair. And if it doesn't meet this demand of mine, well, then life's not worth living or the world is just a horrible place to live in.
it sounds like this one tries to get more at the core of where the
Core
thought came
beliefs.
from.
Yes.
Yeah, and uh, listen, do I like CBT? Yeah. Do I think it's like the shit? No. So I feel like I'm going to be like really hard. It's like D, D. So where okay, so we talked about how like there's a lot of research. I also found that yeah, a lot of research says it is effective for like a wide variety
Hmm.
of things. I like the fact that it's a bit more in depth than CBT. Um,
Yes.
and you said that this is something that you use quite often, and I'm guessing
Yeah.
you found it effective. Otherwise, you wouldn't use it.
Oh, it's very effective. It's
Mhm,
effective, but not just that, but it also, I'm a fan of direct treatments. Like, okay, not like, oh, I'm telling you what to do, but more like, okay, we're not going to beat around the bush until you finally gain insight into what's going on. No, no, I'm gonna help you. We're gonna make this happen.
mhm,
We have lives to live. There's almost so much time and money we have. Let's get this shit going.
mhm.
So, and it does focus on, the rational, the cognitive aspect, the emotional aspect, and the behavioral aspect. So it really hits on all these things without necessarily needing to spend too much time in, oh, tell me about your childhood when you were 5 years old. um so in that kind of a sense it's effective, but it's also efficacious. It's quick in what it does.
I think that's the part that that I'm kind of like, I like, but I don't like. It's quick, which is almost in a sense a band-aid approach to certain things, because there's more that needs to be explored in order for the things, the skills learned,
Hmm.
or like that we're trying to teach, are like for them to be effective, right? And I think the one thing primarily that I don't like this type of therapy is because a lot of places tend to have this is what we're going to do in these 12 sessions, and we can't like veer outside of it. Like it has to be this very much like step by step kind of thing,
Yeah,
and
it's
that's
very
what I
structured,
don't. Yeah, I don't like that because my brain just doesn't like it.
and that
um
makes sense.
yeah, so what would you score this one?
So I would score it probably, okay. So also something else to take into account as well, we have to remember this also, is that it's not just, oh, the therapy itself, it's also what it's good at treating, because not every therapy is good at treating every single issue. So, as an example, REBT is not excuse me, is not amazing at working with, say, autism, as an example.
Mm-hmm.
And REBT has to be tailored, or CBT as well, need to be tailored to really treat trauma. So it's really, 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 really good for depression, for personality disorders, for anxiety, for things of that, for anger, things of that nature. So if I was to take all of it as a whole, I would probably put it A rank.
Same. There you go. Okay. Yeah. Yes, that's also something that I should have mentioned in the disclaimer too, that um, not everything in here is going to be good for every single diagnosis or every single thing that people come to therapy for.
Hmm.
And I think we're just going to repeat ourselves every time we talked about
Yeah.
something. All right, cool. Next one.
What's next?
Psychoanalysis.
Psychoanalysis. Do you want to start or should I?
I can start. I remember taking this class. I remember being so lost. It is so complex. It is written by someone from that spoke Old English a long time ago. There's so many weird words in it, and my brain could not compute. Now, this type of therapy, it's usually just like CBT and other like short-term therapists, they have like a specific way that it needs to be done in order for it to be effective or more effective, right? So from my understanding, psychoanalysis has to be done in a very long term kind of thing, and you have to like not miss a session. It has to be twice a week.
If not
There you
more.
go. Yeah, and it focuses a lot on talking, like basically talking out everything and sort of analyzing everything about it.
Basically, yeah.
Like your dreams, your thoughts, emotions, everything. So is it effective?
I mean, is it effective? It depends what we're talking about for. So psychoanalysis has shown to have some efficaciousness for trauma. Um, Although again, it's a long-term kind of thing, so it takes a long time to eventually get there, but it does eventually get there.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, a big problem with psychoanalysis is that kind of the opposite of the problem that you have with CBT. So, like with CBT, it's very manualized, for example, it's very structured. Psychoanalysis has little to no structure. And it's one of those things where if you talk to people who are very well trained in it, for example, or, are super, super into it, one of the things they'll tell you is that it's a way of thinking or a way of doing things that cannot be taught. And if it's something that can't really be taught, then you have to ask, okay, if it can't be manualized, if it can't be taught, how scientific is it? Because
Mm-hmm.
at that point, it's just, okay, I have my interpretation of this. You go to a different one, I have my interpretation, another one, I have my interpretation. Well, then, if it has no solid foundation for us to come to agreement, then it becomes almost like a faith healing kind of a thing in a way. And that's why psychoanalysis is kind of seen sort of pseudoscience-y a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, that's sort of like my problem with it. I mean, part of the reason why I like it is because it gets to the root of the problem, right? It allows people to express everything they want to express, gives them a safe space to do so. But part of me also kind of argues, is it the relationship that you have with the therapist, that you see them so often for so long, or is it actually this type of therapy that works? Because
Right.
when I like try to Google, like there isn't like a specific thing, like you said, like psychoanalysis is like so vague um, that there isn't like a does it work? Like it's really hard to capture it. It's more, I will say it's more. It feels more like a theory
Hmm.
than like something we can actually like implement.
Yeah, it's much more of a philosophy than it is a
Mm-hmm.
therapy, exactly as you said.
Yeah.
And all of these theories, they come from a kind of philosophical outlook, but the thing that makes it go from a philosophy to a theory to a modality is the scientific underpinning of it. Psychoanalysis doesn't really have it that much. Psychodynamic does, and we'll get to that at a later point, but psychoanalysis doesn't really have it that much. And so if I was ranking it, I would rank it at a D.
Whoa, that low.
Mm-hmm.
I was gonna go with C only because this is the type of therapy that I unwillingly tend to do the most of because I love the fact that I think for the most part a lot of people that I work with, they just need a space to talk.
I
And this
agree.
type of therapy allows for that. It gets to the root of the problem. However, actually, no, I'm going to change my mind. I think, yeah, I will have to agree with you because it's way too long and it will get so expensive. Like, this
Right.
only works for people that have all of the money and all of the time
And yeah,
to be able
and just
to
to
do
react
this.
to that, where you said, like, people need a space to talk, you're 100% right. At the same time, there are other modalities that do exactly that, but do it better. So the way I look
Mhm.
at psychoanalysis, I look at it like, when we used to use leeches medicinally.
Mm.
Leeches work, by the way, but we have such better interventions than that. So I see psychoanalysis as our version of using leeches.
Yeah, don't use leeches.
Yeah, don't use
Don't
leeches.
do that. Oh, look, it's the same color.
Oh,
Yay.
that's perfect. So
It
what's
was
next?
secretly meant to be a low ranked modality. Okay, the next one. Da, 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 da. Solution focused.
Solution focused. Okay. So Solution Focus was made by Steve DeShazer, and I think her last name was Kim. I forget her first name. And what I like about Solution Focus is that it's so much different from almost every other modality in that almost every other modality is like problem focused. Okay, what's the problem? Okay, tell me about it. Let's see if we can find a solution to that or find the solution. Solution focused is like, okay, I don't want to hear too much about the problem. I want to hear about the solution. I want to hear about when it's less of a problem. And let's build up the solution that already exists. Let's make it stronger. It's strengths based. And I like that a lot because this is one of those times where that can be applied to literally anything. So like, oh, even let's say autism for an example. Oh, I have an issue when I'm going out on a date, or I have issue with friends, or I have an issue with this, or maybe even ADHD. I have a hard time focusing.
Mm-hmm.
100%. And the solution focused therapists would say something along the lines of, okay, I would imagine that there are times when it's not as bad, where it's less of an issue. Tell me about that. I want to hear more about that and what allows it to happen. And that is true for just about every problem you could have. And then you just build off of that.
Yes. So my ADHD brain just does things. To me, it seems like I'm just doing them like from my gut. I'm like, oh, I think this is just the right way of doing it. And it's not until like I am forced to give it a name that I'm like, oh, I'm actually doing this type of therapy. But when I'm in the session, I don't think about like, now it's time to do CBT or like now it's time to do solution focus. But yes, I mean, one thing that I like about this is very short term.
It is.
I really like that. And a lot of people that come to therapy, um, for the first time, typically prefer this. Or that's kind of what they need because everything's on fire right now, and I just need you to give me water so I can put it out, and
Exactly.
then we can move on to something else, right?
Exactly.
So it is good. However, it's kind of like the opposite of like psychoanalysis where it's like it's kind of like very short term.
It's very short term. It's
um
brief.
yeah, but it doesn't cover everything, right?
It's yeah, so it's not meant to like, oh, solution focus for depression, solution focus for this. It's actually meant to be that thing that, okay, it's brief. It's meant to, I guess one thing I suppose it's not really meant for is it's not meant to deal with psychosis. It's not meant to help that. Yeah, it can help with the personality disorders, it can help with even borderline. But maybe with like, if we're talking severe schizophrenia, for example, it might not be most effective for that.
I think it will also there are certain things that also don't necessarily have a solution, right? Like if my problem is um racism in
Hmm.
my community and I have no money in order to move, or like there's not much I can do to like stop it,
Hmm.
it's going to be very limited as to what I can
Sure.
do. Yeah.
Sure.
So
So in terms of like, social stuff, it makes it's difficult. And that's where solution focus is pretty much saying, okay, when is this less of a problem? Like, sometimes you're more stressed about it, sometimes you're less. Well, why are those times are you less stressed about it? What's going on in those times? And it's not about finding the solution, it's about finding a solution. And it's about just helping you to cope in that moment. Kind of like you said, let me just help you put out the fire and then we'll deal with fire prevention.
yeah. um yeah, so I like it. I use it a lot. It's very effective.
Hmm.
I The way that I think about it, it's again kind of like like a thinking style. We're encouraging our clients to be like, okay, this is a problem. How do I find a solution?
Right.
Right.
I
Um,
would put it honestly, you're gonna think I'm crazy for this one. I would put it at S.
yes, I would think you're crazy. I was thinking like C.
Really? What if we compromise
Yeah.
at A?
Um, wait. Why why would you say S though?
Because while it doesn't work for everything, it works in what I'm trying to think about right now. It works for like in my mind like 95% of things, which is very varied, um, especially when we're talking about clinical issues.
Yeah, but I think part of why I scored it so low is because to me it also seems like another band-aid approach.
Mm,
Like, yes, you can learn how to like solve problems, but the root of the problem is still gonna be there. So it's not like the most effective overall,
mm.
um, but it's good for what it's meant to do, I think. So
The reason I put it at S more so is because like I don't think it's like so a lot of these therapies that are called band-aid solutions like depends I think like, on how they're implemented. So like CBT for example is a lot of times called a band-aid intervention because it doesn't delve deep, and it's not always about necessarily finding, oh, the deep thing that happened in your past, for example. It's about, okay, this is the problem. Okay, let's learn a skill to deal with it, and then let's find skills that can generalize to other things so that you can function properly. Because at the end of the day, the whole idea of therapy is to help you to be able to function in your life in a way that works best for you. So the point of solution focused is, okay, let's find how you've functioned in the past that worked for you, or when is there the exception when you're okay, and let's generalize that. And can you take this to future problems that are going to happen in your life and how are you going to deal with that? So band-aid doesn't a band-aid is fine when the issue is a cut. A band-aid is not okay when
Mhm.
the issue is a broken bone.
Well, that's why I'm like, okay, but if what if I have like three broken bones? This isn't going to be as helpful, right?
Sure.
So that's why I was like, not S, but I can compromise and put it on A.
Sure. At the very
Yes.
most, maybe in that kind of case with the bones, it could be a cast.
Yeah. So it's if used alongside something else, it will
Mm-hmm.
be perfect. And I think
Sure.
that's the thing that because that's why I feel like I'm going to be so hard on all of these because I'm like, well, you're not perfect. You're not going to cover every single thing. And it, like you said, it if used correctly,
Mm-hmm.
it can be good. But sometimes that takes like if you're trying to teach it to like a person that's just starting to their training as a
Mm-hmm.
mental health provider, it can it can create a bit of a confusion as to how effective it is. 'Cause
Sure.
I feel like there's a lot of students sometimes coming to the idea of this is the therapy, you know, and
Mm.
I'm just gonna like stick with it because I mean, it's kind of relatively easy compared to some other therapy styles out there to do, but I kind of have this fear that they're just kind of gonna get stuck on only
Which one,
doing
solution
that type
focus or
of
CBT?
solution focus, that they might just get stuck only doing that and not branching out because of
Sure.
how effective it is and easy to
100%. I think one of the harder things when it comes to solution focused, and it's actually one of the tougher things, is that
do.
it's very, very, very specific about the questions you ask. And so in that kind of way, it's kind of structured. So like, yes, it's
Mm,
easy. If you can know which of the questions to ask and when, yes, it's very easy. But until that point, it's kind of that kind of a steep learning curve.
mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Next one.
Yes.
Okay, we'll do two more. Um, and then we'll save the other ones for another video
Sure.
because otherwise we're going to be here for like 3 hours. Oh, this one is going to be controversial. Dun, dun, dun,
Talk to
dun.
me. I
EMDR.
knew I knew you're gonna the moment we said controversial, I knew that was gonna be it. Okay, I already know what my ranking's gonna be.
Oh, dang. Okay, share.
It's gonna be B.
Wow, I thought you were going to go we're going to go a lot lower.
No, B. Because,
Okay, why?
and I'll tell you exactly why. EMDR works. All the research shows it works. There is little to no controversy about how effective it is. The major controversy with EMDR is why it works, what allows it to work. So in regards to EMDR, it it is a form of exposure. It's not like the regular exposure that you're used to, like systematic exposure or prolonged exposure, which is part of CBT. It's its own kind of exposure, but at the end of the day, it's exposure. The part about it that is controversial, that the research has shown does not work, is the bilateral stimulation, which is either the eye movements or the tapping or the sounds, whatever it is, that has been shown to have a little to no effect at all.
I think the other thing too is when we focus on research, we always compare it to another theory. And the research that I came across was like, yeah, it's good. It's just we couldn't find anything that made it better than other things that we already have. And I
Hmm.
think sometimes when we are trying to promote something new, that's the focus usually, right? And I think that's where the controversy mainly comes in, because it's so new and because we don't exactly know that much about it. And because sometimes the people that go through it are like, it's like magic. I cannot believe how good it was. Like, I have gone through so many other therapists and this is the one that actually worked. It just sounds so fake. Like, what are you doing that's like that's working, you know? So
Right. It is the exposure. And like I said, it's a different kind of exposure where, so most exposure, the way it works is you're kind of not forced to, but you're kind of um, coaxed in a sense to stay with the exposure for as long as you're able to handle it, and then obviously you're pulled out of it to try to acclimate you to it in that kind of a sense. With EMDR, the way the exposure works is you're in the exposure, you're in the triggering environment, so to speak, for all of like 5 to 10 seconds, and then you're pulled out, and then you're just being asked questions. Hey, go and free associate, almost like psychoanalysis, psychodynamic. Start, just free associating about this. What were your thoughts? What were you feeling? So it's different in that sense, and that might be the magical part of it because that is something that's new. That's new. That's something we still need to research more. But at the end of the day, it's still exposure. That's why I'm kind of putting it in that B section, because we have the research that shows something, but we still need more research into that new exposure modality.
I think if we didn't have the S category, I would have just put it at C, because C is more kind of like solid, like average kind of thing. And I
Mm.
think the one thing that I like about EMDR is that for the people that it works,
Yes, it
it
does.
works so well, and it provides so much relief for them. And I think this is one of the reasons why I wanted to do these videos, because oftentimes, like you were saying, okay, so our EBT is something that you're very passionate about, something that you do, and then I'm like over here like freestyling, and then like, no, don't give me anything that's like that I have to do step by step, because I can't manage that, right? So all of us as therapists, we all have a different preference, and that's
Right.
not necessarily a bad thing. It's just that's the type of therapy that we do. But sometimes it gives people the idea of like, oh, this is what therapy is. It sucks because it didn't help me.
Yes.
Right.
Oh, another reason why I'm giving it B is because I remember this piece also. If
Mm.
we're talking about EMDR for trauma, it's A, if not S. Um,
Oh, yes, yes, yes. Good point.
for
Good point.
for
Mhm.
everything else, it's like D, if not, it's like C, if not D. So in the middle, it would be B.
Yeah. 'Cause the only thing that I wrote as my notes was like, there's not much info when it comes to like other, like compared to like other therapies. Like it's
Yeah.
just like it's just as effective. But like the only thing that it seems to be really effective for is like anything that has to do with like PTSD or like
Yeah,
trauma. So
PTSD, trauma,
yeah.
anxiety, it's really, really good for that.
Hmm.
Everything else,
It's hit or miss. Yeah. All
it's
right.
pretty mess. Yeah. All right,
Mm-hmm.
what
All
one
right,
more?
cool. Let's do one more. Rogerian.
Rogerian. Okay, yeah. So client-centered, person-centered, patient-centered, whatever you want to call it. Um, basically, the Rogerian is basically just the therapeutic relationship. If you really boil it down, it's nothing more than the therapeutic relationship.
I was like, couldn't find any research on this. But like, I think this one reminds me of like psychoanalysis a little bit,
Mhm.
where it is kind of like a way of life.
Right.
Like, yeah. There's not. Well, okay. Hold on. Let me backtrack a little. This one does have more like specific like techniques
Hmm.
that you use.
Yes.
Kind of like the empty chair, right? There's a lot of role play for this one.
Is empty
Uh,
chair Rogerian?
I don't know.
No, empty chair is Gestalt.
Oh, close enough. It was someone's name.
Yeah, it's
um,
Gestalt.
yeah. So this one, I guess, one ups psychoanalysis in that it actually has some things that you can use, like specific, techniques.
Hmm.
So that's good, but it's still relatively vague.
It is
However,
really vague. Yeah.
however, it is really, really good because you're focused on the client.
Yes.
And that's what we are supposed to be doing.
I mean, and that is the foundation to every therapy. That all these therapies that work, whether it's solution focused, EMDR, REBT, CBT, it doesn't really matter. It's all based on, okay, can you at least build that relationship with the patient? And with Rogerian or client-centered therapy, the whole idea is I'm not really asking you questions. That's a big thing about Rogerian. You're not really asking questions. It's almost completely reflection or validation or restatement, summarization, all these things. That's not really asking questions. And it's just about building, it's basically interpersonal therapy in that kind of a sense without questions. So because it's so indirect and it's so based on insight, kind of like psychoanalysis and psychodynamic in that kind of a way. But all this is a relationship. I know I'm taking a long road here. I'm gonna put it as B, honestly, because
I
it's
was
it's
thinking
so middle of the
A.
road. It's so middle of the road to me. It's like it's weak, but you need it. So like I'm like B.
Um, I'm very tempted to put it next to A because the reason why we put solution focus in A is because it's effective,
Hmm.
especially when it's used with something else. And I think Rogerian is the same way, where like it's really, really good, especially if you use it with something else. Because this essentially the way that I see this one is sort of like the foundation of
So the reason I disagree with that is because it's not that it's good, especially if you use it with something else.
Mm,
I feel like it's only useful if you use it with something else. That because it's
really.
that because it's nothing more than the relationship. And while yes, the dodo bird verdict, which I mean we both learned in grad school that the therapeutic relationship and all that stuff is like the most important to outcomes. While yes, it's most important to outcomes after how much time of therapy? 12 months, a year, 10 years. So but the active ingredients are what allows therapy to not need to take necessarily as long. Because like EMDR works amazingly for trauma, but like if you didn't use those things, the trauma therapy would take much, 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 much longer to reach those outcomes. So that's why I'm putting it as B. It's a phenomenal, phenomenal foundation, but you need more than that. This is
Mm.
where we have some disagreement here.
No, but okay, kind of, but no. So I think by itself it can still be really good, but I tend to because of the way that I do therapy, because it's primarily telehealth and the people that I tend to see.
Hmm.
Um, it's usually people who struggle with social interactions, or
Mm,
they just need that sort of social connection, that support, right?
sure.
But
Yeah.
it would not necessarily work for everything, because if we, for example, if we say with kiddos, it, like
Mm,
you can't, like, I mean, yeah, it would be kind of useless. And actually this happened to me about a year ago. I think I leaned too much into this one, and then the kiddo was just kind of thinking that it was like playtime and like I was their friend. And I was like,
mm,
no. And then I was like, oh no, that was me. That was on me. I am so sorry. um,
right.
so yeah, okay, fine. Fine, I'll give you this one.
I mean, listen, this is your video. If you want to put it as A, you can put it as A. You don't have to go with what I
No, no,
say.
no, no. No, because you I think I just posted like a video of us psychoanalyzing tough, and then at one point I said, "Stop disagreeing with me," and then you were like, "No,"
It
and I
makes
was
it
like,
more
"No."
fun.
I mean, yes, it's definitely like more interesting because, again, we work with different people. Like
Yes.
you were saying, like you have like your specialty. I tend to work more with neurodivergent folk. I work with
Hmm.
kiddos. Um, so we have a different type of experience, different
Oh, yeah.
people that we see, so that allows us to combine everything that we know.
1,000,000%. Yes.
Yeah, so
Okay.
this is good. Okay,
This is a
so
great start.
Yes, this is good. This is good. Oh, we left like the ones that are most known: CBT, DBT,
Can't wait to get to those in the next
active
one.
and psychodynamic. Yeah, and I actually, because I enjoy this so much, I think we should also eventually move to like superhero therapy and art therapy and
Sure.
all those other ones, because I think it would be really interesting to talk about
100%.
and to do research, because for some of those I'm like
There's
kind
very
of
little research on them.
understand. One, there's very little research, and it's not, they're not as widely known, or they tend to be more like, oh, art therapy, anyone can do it at home, and I'm like, no, that's not that's not what art therapy is. That's not how it works. But okay, cool. So here are just a summary. So we put our EBT and solution focus as A, very solid, very good interventions, or like modalities.
Mm-hmm.
EMDR, really solid again, but only primarily for trauma and
Trauma and
PTSD,
anxiety.
which
Yeah.
all of us experience. So yeah, I will still leave it at B. Rogerian, or like humanistic. It's again, it's
It's foundational.
yeah, it's getting there, but it's still not solid. It's more like mushy. It's not as solid. And psychoanalysis is just like
Yeah.
only because it's not easy to do. It takes a long time for you to be trained in it. It's so expensive, and it's not very good for a lot, or the majority of the people, realistically.
Right. In other words, it's not that it doesn't work, it's that it's not efficient.
Yeah, there you go. All right, awesome. So thank you so much, you guys. Hope this was helpful and fun. And don't forget to subscribe and follow us on our socials, so you know when the next video is gonna come out. So you can check us out at Psych for Geeks. That's just Psych, the number 4 Geeks. And
Mhm.
then, oh yeah, you can check out our Discord channel. We are growing, and we're doing movie nights, and we're doing lots of cool things. So check us out there. And before we end, Mark, do you want to talk about your book?
Yes,
Which,
100%.
please tell me you have one nearby so you can show it. Oh,
Always do, yes. The Alchemy Approach, it is a book written by me, very short, purposely left short, for clinicians, whether they're therapists, nurses, doctors, physical therapists, doesn't matter, that have suicidal patients that they might not know exactly how to handle it, what to do. It's a very, like I said, very short, very to the point. Whenever I got a new therapy book, I hated all the fluff. I hated how long it took them to get to the meat and potatoes. This gets right to the meat and potatoes of knowing the core foundations of suicide, knowing how to do a suicide assessment, and then knowing the interventions. You can read in under an hour, and you can help save a life if you ever have a suicidal patient in your office.
one of the things that I really like about it is because like I said earlier, like the way that my ADHD brain works is that I don't necessarily remember all the details of things, but I remember vague things. So sometimes I'm kind of like, wait, what's exactly the one thing? Like, what's the name of the thing? So you made it actually really easy, because you
Yeah,
have graphics
very,
for things, so I can
very,
just like
very easy.
flip through it and then be like, oh yes, that's what I was talking about. Or I think a lot of those things you can actually work through them like with the client there, looking at it as well. So
100%.
yeah, that's cool. So definitely check that out. Wait, where can people find you?
Oh, 100%. So you can find me on Instagram, Alchemy Counseling, alchemy_counseling. You can also find me at alchemycounselingny.com. That's my website if you want to set up an appointment with me, or you want to reach out. And yeah,
I didn't know you had a website.
of course I do. Everyone has a website.
Wait, because I was like, the other day I was like, I think I was gonna yell at you. I was like, why do you have a website? Because I was putting like your socials and stuff on the description of the YouTube video, and I was like, why don't you have a website?
You never asked me for it, but I'll give it to you. I'll give it to you now.
Wait. Oh, you know why? It's because I usually my thing is I just go and look at on Instagram, and then I look at the links there. And I don't think you have your website there. I think you have your book and something else there.
That might explain it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's why I was like, well, you don't have like, if it's not in this particular place, you don't have one.
Well,
Okay,
I'll
cool.
send you the link after.
Now will be in the description of the video because now I have it. So
Wonderful.
once again, thank you everyone to making it to the end. Let us know what you think about these therapies. Let us know if you disagree or agree with us and why. That's important. Let us know why. Maybe you'll change your mind. And then don't forget to subscribe so you can check out the other video when we talk about the other ones. And don't forget to refrain and re-enchant your life, and we'll see you on the next video. Bye.
Bye.